Now, this kind of violent crime is leading Buffalo police to try alternate forms of law enforcement.
Yeah, this is a move being seen in departments nationwide. CBS News correspondent Jeff Pegues has been following this story and got the chance to witness firsthand how Buffalo police are changing and adapting their approach. Jeff, thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure. So we had access to Buffalo police as well as the FBI, guys.
So tell me about that sort of mutual aid. Is that what this approach is when it comes to fighting crime, not only in the Queen City here, but also in departments across the country?
Well, it's happening in some departments across the country, not all departments. But what is different here is the focus. When you have the FBI and local police, Buffalo Police, Erie County Police, working together, and what they're trying to do is approach crime this way. Take these suspects who are repeatedly committing crimes off the streets and keep them off the streets. That's been a problem in some cities where people who've committed crimes get right back out on the streets and then commit more crimes. So they're not taking a long-term approach to fighting crime. What we're told and what we found out in this report that we did in Buffalo, the FBI and local police there are working with a short-term focus, try to get these so-called trigger pullers off the streets and then hit them with federal charges as well as state charges to keep them behind bars.
Now, let me ask you, Jeff, as we mentioned before, you've been following this. When you looked at all of the data, does it show that this approach is working?
Well, the FBI seems to think that it's working, and in Buffalo, they said, what they told us was late last year, they saw a 57% drop in homicides. So they see what is happening in Buffalo, the FBI as well as local police. They see it as taking a positive step against crime and perhaps a blueprint for other cities across the country, and that's why we went there.
Now, part of the impetus, I imagine, Jeff, is, as you mentioned, keeping these criminals off the streets, from having them just be arraigned on sometimes even felony charges. And as a result of bail reform here in New York State, being released out in the public to commit more and sometimes serious crimes. Is this law enforcement's way to get around the bail reform that is happening in New York State?
Well, what they're trying to do is, we didn't talk about the politics happening in New York State. What we talked to the FBI officials on the ground. We talked to the police commissioner of Buffalo. We talked to the sheriff of Erie County. So we were talking about what they were actually doing, not what's being proposed, but this focus on the short term. And that's something, having covered law enforcement for a long time, that really stood out to me. They don't want to take this long-term approach because there is, as one FBI official told us while we were there is blood in the streets. That's the way they look at it, and that's why they feel like they have to act now. They can't just sit back and take a long-term approach. They got to focus in on what's happening now, the people behind these surges in crime, and get them behind bars. What they're saying is, we're going to work with local prosecutors there. We're going to work with local law enforcement. The feds are saying they're going to try and tag on these federal charges. That's going to make it harder for these suspects to get out overnight. They're going to have to stay behind bars for some time if they get hit with federal charges.
Well, CBS News correspondent Jeff Pegues, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And, of course, you can see the full report tonight on the CBS Evening News. Jeff, be well.
You too.